Ladies and gentlemen, let's dive deep today, not surface level, not just the facts, but into the core of human connection and the pain that comes when it's disrupted. Have you ever felt the sting of silence? You reach out only to be met with a void, not just absence of words, but absence of presence. You start questioning yourself. Was it something I said? Am I too much? Or worse, am I not enough? Let me tell you something straight. The silent treatment from an avoidant isn't about you. It's about their fear. We're not here to judge. We're here to understand, to gain power through knowledge, and to set ourselves free. Let's break it down. Avoidance is often misunderstood. When someone withdraws, shuts down, or gives the silent treatment, our first instinct is to assume it's about us, that we did something wrong, that we weren't good enough to keep them engaged, connected, or open. But that assumption is exactly what fuels our own emotional suffering. The reality is, when a person with avoidant tendencies goes silent, it's rarely about you. It's about their own internal world, a world governed by fear, not malice. People with avoidant attachment styles have often learned early in life that vulnerability is dangerous. Maybe they grew up in environments where expressing emotion led to rejection, punishment, or ridicule. Maybe they were never taught how to safely navigate emotional closeness. So instead of leaning in when things get intense, they lean out. Instead of expressing their discomfort, they disappear into silence. To them, this is a form of safety. To you, it feels like punishment. But to them, it feels like survival. Their silence is not designed to hurt you. It's a coping mechanism. It's their version of armor. You might be craving a conversation, a moment of connection, a clarification. But in their internal operating system, closeness often triggers a fear of engulfment, of losing control, or of being judged. So they do what they've always done to stay safe. They retreat. And when they do, it's not to gain power over you. It's not because they don't care. It's because they don't know how to stay present in the storm of emotion. They freeze instead of fight. They disappear instead of dialoguing. Now, this doesn't make the behavior okay, but it does make it understandable. It allows us to view the situation through a lens of compassion instead of blame. But here's the thing. Understanding this dynamic isn't about excusing it, it's about decoding it. Because once you see it for what it is, a defense mechanism, not an attack, you can stop internalizing it. You can stop spiraling into self-doubt. You can stop making their silence your fault. You must realize you didn't cause their avoidance. You didn't break them. You didn't trigger something that wasn't already there. Their silence is a reflection of their emotional conditioning. And sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to stop interpreting their withdrawal as a reflection of your worth and start seeing it as a reflection of their wound. Silence isn't just an absence of sound. It's a presence of something deeper, something unspoken, something heavy. And when it comes from someone you care about, especially someone with avoidant tendencies, it can feel like a wall you keep running into. But here's the truth. Silence is a language. It may not come in the form of words, but it is communication. And the problem is not that it isn't speaking. The problem is that most of us were never taught how to listen to what it's really saying. The silent treatment from an avoidance isn't just them ignoring you. It's a patterned response, a way of regulating overwhelming feelings. When they go quiet, when they retreat into that emotional cave, what they're often saying without words is, "This is too much. I don't know how to do this. If I say something, I might mess it all up." And while you're sitting there interpreting their silence as rejection, they're sitting in their own fear, trying to stay afloat in a wave of emotions they were never taught to navigate. Their silence may not be the language you want, but it's the language they learn. Somewhere along the line, they were taught that expression equals exposure, and exposure equals pain. So now, instead of expressing their needs or struggles, they vanish. They shut the door. And here's the kicker. You can feel that door slam even when no words are exchanged, because emotional silence echoes louder than any shout. But if you stop and tune in, not to your fear, not to your frustration, but to the pattern, you'll start to hear the message. You'll start to recognize the rhythm of their retreat. You'll start to see that it's not about you being unworthy of a response, but about them feeling unworthy of being fully seen. That doesn't mean you should settle for the silence. It doesn't mean you stay stuck in confusion. But when you start recognizing silence as a message instead of a mystery, you gain clarity. You stop begging for words that may never come, and instead you start reading the emotional energy behind the quiet. You begin to understand that silence can scream things like, I don't feel safe, or I'm afraid to be vulnerable, even if they never admit it. And in that understanding, something powerful happens. You stop taking it personally. You stop twisting yourself into knots trying to decode your own worth through someone else's discomfort. And that shift, that's when you start reclaiming your power. There is a heartbreaking kind of exhaustion that comes from chasing someone who won't let you in. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you grip, the more it slips through. And when you're dealing with an avoidant, chasing their silence is exactly like trying to hug a shadow. You're reaching out with everything you have, your love, your reassurance, your willingness to fix it. But what you're trying to embrace can't be held because it was never grounded to begin with. The avoidant attachment style is built on the belief that closeness equals danger. That intimacy demands too much, that showing emotion risks losing control, so when things feel intense, whether it's a conflict, a moment of vulnerability, or even deep affection, they retreat. And when they go quiet, you feel the sting of that silence in your bones. And naturally, you want to do something about it. You text, you call, you show up emotionally, maybe even physically, hoping to bridge the gap. But the more you chase, the more they disappear. It's not because they don't care. It's because in their inner world, being pursued feels suffocating. It triggers their old wiring, the belief that intimacy will cost them their independence, that needing someone makes them weak. So your efforts to close the gap feel to them like pressure, and their instinct is to pull back even harder. This creates a vicious cycle. The more they avoid, the more anxious you become. The more anxious you become, the more you reach out. And the more you reach out, the more they retreat. Eventually, you find yourself trapped in a loop of emotional starvation. You keep offering your heart in hopes that this time will be different, that this time they'll turn around and meet you halfway. But shadows don't turn around. Shadows don't hold you back. They just move further away the more you try to grab them. Here's where the shift has to happen. Real connection can't come from pursuit. It comes from presence. It comes when you stop chasing and start observing. When you pull your energy inward and ask, what am I trying to fix in them that really needs healing in me? Because the truth is, the moment you stop chasing is the moment you start creating space for clarity, for truth, and sometimes for the realization that love isn't supposed to feel like a one-sided sprint. And when you stop running after the shadow, you might finally see the light you've been withholding from yourself. There's a dangerous lie that takes root in silence. It whispers to you that you're the problem, that if someone withdraws from you, it must mean you're unworthy. That if they don't respond, if they ignore you, if they go days without reaching out, it must mean you did something wrong. That lie is poison. It infects your confidence, your self-respect, your emotional clarity. And it's a lie that so many people unknowingly start to live by, especially in relationships with avoidant individuals. When someone disappears emotionally or physically, it's natural to go inward and wonder, what did I do? You replay conversations in your head. You analyze your tone, your timing, your text messages. You twist yourself into emotional knots trying to track the exact moment they started pulling away. And in doing that, you begin to assign your value to their behavior. But here's the truth that sets you free. Someone else's inconsistency is not a mirror of your inadequacy. People with avoidant tendencies often struggle to show up, not because you're too much, but because they haven't learned how to stay present when things get real. When intimacy grows, so does their fear. Fear of being known, fear of being needed, fear of not being enough or of being too much themselves. So they run, hide, go silent. And while you're left in the chaos of confusion, they're locked in their own emotional survival mode. Their response has everything to do with their past and their pain, not your value. You must stop measuring your worth by their ability to handle intimacy. You must stop shrinking yourself, editing yourself, softening your needs just to stay palatable to someone who hasn't yet faced their own emotional walls. because you are not too sensitive for wanting communication. You are not needy for craving connection. You are not wrong for expecting effort. You are human, and your need for closeness isn't a flaw. It's a sign that your heart is still open in a world that taught so many to shut down. If someone can't meet you there, if they avoid, deflect, or go silent, it doesn't mean you're not lovable. It means they're not ready. And instead of bending to accommodate their unreadiness, your work is to rise into your own enoughness. Because the moment you realize your self-worth isn't something they get to decide, is the moment you begin to reclaim your emotional freedom. It's a beautiful thing. To understand someone, to see their wounds, to recognize their fears, to realize why they shut down or why they distance themselves when things get emotionally intense, that level of insight takes empathy. And empathy is one of the most powerful tools we have. But here's the trap so many fall into. We confuse understanding someone's pain with tolerating behavior that hurts us. We tell ourselves they had a rough childhood or they just don't know how to communicate. And we use that understanding to justify staying in situations that drain us, silence us, or slowly chip away at our self-worth. Yes, understanding is power. It gives you the ability to stop taking things personally, to stop making someone else's emotional unavailability a reflection of your value. But it is not a free pass for you to abandon yourself, because the moment you begin betraying your own needs in the name of compassion, you're no longer practicing empathy. You're practicing self-neglect. Boundaries are not walls, and they are not punishments. They're the clarity you bring to your relationships that says, I see your pain, but I will not let it hurt me. They're the space you create so you can stay connected to yourself, even when someone else is disconnected from you. They're the standards you hold, not because you don't care about someone, but because you finally started caring about yourself enough to say, this behavior is not okay for me. When you deal with someone avoidant, you can absolutely recognize that their silence or distance is rooted in fear. You can even love them through it, but that doesn't mean you silence your own voice in the process. It doesn't mean you accept being emotionally breadcrumbed, ghosted, or kept in a loop of inconsistency just because you understand the why behind it. You are allowed to say, I get it, and I still need communication. You are allowed to say, I know you struggle with closeness, but I deserve emotional availability. And you are absolutely allowed to walk away, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with strength. Because boundaries are the birthplace of self-respect. They are how you draw a line between compassion for others and commitment to yourself. Understanding someone gives you emotional clarity. Setting boundaries gives you emotional freedom. And the combination of the two, that's where your power lives. When we talk about the silent treatment from an avoidant, we're not just discussing relationship dynamics. We're touching on the deepest layers of human connection. We're confronting the ache that comes from feeling emotionally abandoned. We're looking at the pain of being near someone physically, yet feeling miles away from them emotionally. But more than that, we're acknowledging the internal war that happens when your head understands their behavior, but your heart still feels the sting of their absence. This is not just about understanding another person's patterns. It's about reclaiming your voice in the middle of their silence. So many people are stuck in relationships where they feel like they're constantly waiting for a message, for a sign, for clarity, for change. But the truth is, sometimes you don't need to wait for someone else to come back around. Sometimes you need to come back home to yourself. Because understanding and avoiding silence is not just about decoding their fear. It's about waking up to your own worth. It's about realizing that your desire for closeness, your need for communication, your longing for connection, none of those are weaknesses. They are human needs. And no relationship that constantly invalidates those needs can truly nourish you. You are allowed to love someone and still choose yourself. You are allowed to understand someone's wounds without sacrificing your own healing. And you are allowed to let go, not out of resentment, but out of reverence for your peace, because staying in emotional limbo, waiting for someone to meet you halfway when they're still standing behind walls they built long before you arrive, will only leave you running in circles. Love should not feel like you're constantly trying to earn it. Real love, healthy love, flows. It communicates, it shows up, and it holds space for both people to feel seen. So if you've been chasing shadows, if you've been trying to make sense of the silence, if you've been blaming yourself for someone else's distance, it's time to stop. Not because you don't care, but because you finally do. You care enough to pause, to breathe, to reflect, to choose relationships where love doesn't just exist, but where it speaks, responds, and shows up consistently. And yes, it hurts to walk away from someone you wish would change, but it hurts more to keep abandoning yourself while waiting for them to. In the end, your healing won't come from unlocking the secrets of someone else's silence. Your healing will come from choosing to be fully present with yourself, to hear your voice again after being drowned out by someone else's avoidance. Let this be the moment where you stop begging for crumbs and start expecting the feast you deserve. Let this be the chapter where you stop proving your worth and start living it. Because you were never too much. You were never not enough. You were simply asking for love in a place that hadn't yet learned how to give it. And now it's your time to rise. Thank you for your presence, your openness, and your willingness to look beneath the surface of silence to find the truth, not just about others, but about yourself. It takes courage to face what hurts. It takes strength to let go of what doesn't serve you. And it takes deep self-respect to rise above the noise and choose healing over chasing. My hope is that you walk away not only with understanding, but with empowerment. That you leave here remembering your worth is not defined by someone else's distance, but by your ability to remain rooted in love, truth, and clarity. You deserve love that speaks, love that shows up, and most of all, love that starts within. Until we meet again, take care of your heart and never apologize for how deeply you feel. Thank you and goodbye.